Welcome back to Mindful Objective, the show where we explore health through an integrative and practical lens. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Sproul, integrative health practitioner and professor. Today we're talking about insulin resistance. This is one of the most yet overlooked drivers of fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, and even migraines. It's a condition that quietly develops over years, often before blood sugar ever shows as high on lab work. But left unchecked, it fuels inflammation, hormone imbalances, and long-term risk for chronic illness. In this episode, we'll break down what insulin resistance is, how it affects the body, and the connections to migraines, and the steps you could take from an integrative health perspective to support balance. As always, this show is for educational purposes only. We do not diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or disease. So let's go ahead and get into it. Insulin is one of the most important hormones in the human body, yet most people only think about it in context of diabetes. In reality, insulin has far-reaching effects of energy, of metabolism, and even your brain health. At its core, insulin acts like a key. Its job is to unlock the door of your cells so that glucose or blood sugar can move from the bloodstream into those cells, where it can be used to create energy. So when the system works, it's smooth and efficient. After a meal, blood sugar rises. The pancreas releases insulin and cells respond by taking in glucose. Levels come back down and balance is restored. But when cells stop responding properly to insulin, something called insulin resistance develops. In this state, the key still tries to open the door, but the lock becomes sticky. The pancreas must produce more and more insulin to get that job done. In the beginning, blood sugar may still appear normal because the body is compensating by pumping out extra insulin. But underneath the surface, the system is strained. Chronically elevated insulin can drive fat storage, disrupt hormones, and increase inflammation. Over time, if no changes are made, blood sugars will start to rise, leading to prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The early signs of insulin resistance are easy to miss. Common ones include constant fatigue, sugar cravings, difficulty losing weight despite adequate energy crashes after meals, and carrying more fat around the waistline. Some people also report feeling irritable if they go too long without eating, and they may have brain fog in the afternoon. Women may experience cycle irregularities, fertility changes, and conditions like PCOS, which is strongly tied to insulin dysfunction. One of the biggest concerns is that insulin resistance rarely comes alone. It often occurs as part of what we know as metabolic syndrome. This cluster includes high triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, elevated blood pressure, increased waist circumference, and rising blood sugar. Together, these factors raise risk for cardiovascular disease and other chronic conditions. But what many people don't realize is that insulin resistance is not just a metabolic issue, it's also a brain issue. Insulin has receptors in the brain where it regulates transmitters, memory, and blood flow. When those receptors become resistant, the risk of cognitive decline increases. Some research has even referred Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes because of how strongly insulin resistance affects brain function. Think about that. Type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease. That's a new term. So what's another thing tied to this? Migraines. This is also tied to the picture. Research shows that people with insulin resistance are most likely to suffer from migraines. That's one thing a lot of people do not know, right? Migraines, insulin, right? Am I eating too much sugar? Is my body not processing that? But yes, it's known to trigger migraines. One explanation involves vascular tone. Insulin helps control how blood vessels expand and contract. When resistance occurs, blood vessels may respond abnormally, leading to sudden constriction and dilation that can trigger migraine attacks. Another explanation involves blood sugar swings. Eating high sugar meals can cause a rapid spike in blood sugar, followed by a sharp drop. That crash can stress the brain and trigger pain pathways associated with migraines. That's why you may hear different neurologists that focus on migraines say, hey, focus on eating more meat, less carbs. Why do they say that? Because of that blood release from the stomach to the brain. But understanding this bigger picture is important. Too often, health concerns are treated in isolation. We see it all the time. Weight issues are addressed with one strategy by itself, migraines with another, and brain fog with yet another. But when we step back, we see that insulin resistance may be a thread that's connecting them all. Identifying it early opens the door for prevention and gives people a chance to restore balance before bigger problems arise. And that's where we go back to when we suggest different functional labs. We look at these functional labs or, even your regular blood work from your medical doctor and say, yes, you can't just look at that one thing alone, right? If we look at your organic acid test, we look at that food sensitivity test. If we look at certain conditions of energy, brain fog, we also look at heavy metals. right? Then how does that correlate to your blood work? How does that correlate to your organic acid test, food sensitivity test? You're having migraines. Okay, did we look at your blood work? Did we look at your organic acid test? Did we look at food sensitivities? Like they all go hand in hand. And you see on the medical side to where a lot of medical doctors or that medical practice, that's not the direction they take. They just look at labs and say, yes, you're fine. Based on symptoms, take this prescription. Us, on the other hand, coming from a health coach perspective, we look at that whole picture, right? Let's look at all those labs. Let's not make a recommendation just based on this one marker right here. Let's look at what else is out there. What is out of balance that's causing this marker to be bad? So again, there's a lot that goes into this. It's not a easy, oh, look at my labs and this is what I have. There's way more to it. So the takeaway is clear, right? Insulin resistance is common, underdiagnosed often, like majorly underdiagnosed, and it's deeply influential. By learning how it develops, what it looks like, and why it matters, we create a foundation that makes meaningful change, right? When we talk about reducing insulin resistance, the conversation must begin with what? Lifestyle. Medications can be helpful in certain cases, but research consistently shows that food choices, daily habits, and activity patterns are the most powerful tools to improve how the body responds to that insulin. One of the first areas to look at is nutrition. Food that rapidly raises blood sugar like white bread, pastry, soda, candy, and many processed snacks place extra demand on the pancreas. Each spike in blood sugar requires the body to release more insulin. Over time, these repeated surges contribute to insulin resistance. On the other hand, whole foods that digest slowly create a gentler response, lowering that burden on the body. Any kind of meat out there, high protein, digests a lot slower than these carbs. The concept of protein, fat, and fiber balance at meals is simply yet transformative. Protein slows digestion and supports muscle repair. Healthy fats like those from olive oil, avocados, nuts, and fatty fish help stabilize blood sugar and provide satiety. Fiber from vegetables, legumes, and whole grains slow the absorption of glucose. For instance, eating a chicken breast with roasted vegetables and olive oil leads to a very different blood sugar curve than eating a bowl of pasta with white bread. Meal timing also plays a role. In today's world, people often snack from morning until night, keeping insulin elevated all day. That's a lot of us right there, guilty, right? For many, reducing constant grazing and shifting back to 3 balanced meals is enough to lower overall insulin levels. Some may experiment with intermittent fasting, such as 12 to 14-hour overnight fast. This allows the body to do a reset. However, fasting isn't ideal for everyone. Women with hormone imbalances or people prone to migraines may find going too long without food makes those symptoms a lot worse. That is why personalization approach is key, listening to how your body responds. Exercise is another cornerstone. Muscles act as a sponge for glucose. When you walk, lift weights, or do physical activity, your muscles pull in glucose from the bloodstream even without insulin. Both aerobic exercise and resistance training are both valuable. A brisk 20-minute walk after meals has been shown to blunt blood sugar spikes. Meanwhile, resistance training builds lean muscle, which increases overall glucose storage capacity. Stress is another often overlooked factor. The hormone cortisol, released during chronic stress, raises blood sugar. If someone is stressed all the time, whether from work, family pressures, or even hidden stressors like poor gut health, insulin resistance worsens. That's why practices such as deep breathing, meditation, journaling, and prayer are not just extras, but powerful tools to improve metabolic health. Sleep is equally critical. Research shows that even one night of poor sleep can temporarily increase insulin resistance the next day. Over time, inconsistent or low-quality sleep contributes to weight gain, sugar cravings, and even energy crashes. Prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of restorative sleep can dramatically improve the way your body handles blood sugar. So what does that mean? From an integrative health perspective, the goal is not perfection, but consistency. How often do we say that? One might start with small, sustainable habits. What could this be? Adding a serving of vegetables to lunch or dinner, right? Committing to a 10-minute walk after a meal, setting consistent bedtimes. Over weeks and months, these habits build on each other and create lasting change. Slow change at a time, right? One small step for mankind. There you go. Food and lifestyle patterns are also highly individual. Some people thrive on a Mediterranean diet, rich in fish, olive oil, vegetables, and even legumes. Others find benefit from lower carb approaches, at least temporarily, to reset that insulin sensitivity. What matters most is whole, unprocessed foods, balance at meals, and removing extremes of sugar and refined carbs. Get rid of that junk. The bottom line, Insulin resistance doesn't develop overnight and it will not disappear overnight. But with steady shifts in how we eat, move, sleep, and manage stress, the body can reestablish balance surprisingly quickly. Within weeks, many people notice improvements in energy, mood, weight management, and even lab values. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is the one that a lot of people do not know, and that is migraines. What is that migraine connection? Migraines are often viewed as strictly a neurological disorder, right? But emerging research shows they are much more complex. One fascinating link that has gained attention is the relationship between migraines and insulin resistance. This connection highlights how deeply metabolic health can influence the brain. Insulin has another important role in vascular regulation. Healthy insulin signaling allows blood vessels to dilate properly, maintaining steady blood flow to those tissues, including the brain. When insulin resistance develops, this regulation is impaired. Blood vessels may constrict or dilate unpredictably. Since migraines are closely tied to abnormal blood vessel changes in the brain, it's easy to see why insulin resistance can contribute. Inflammation is another piece of the puzzle. Insulin resistance is often associated with higher levels of inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and cytokines. Inflammation can make the nervous system more sensitive and prone to overreact. Migraines are thought to involve both vascular changes and hyperexcitable nervous systems, so increased inflammation makes the brain more vulnerable to these attacks. Blood sugar swings may be the most obvious link. When meals are heavy in sugars or refined carbs, blood sugar spikes quickly. Insulin surges to handle it, and often blood sugar drops rapidly afterward. This crash can deprive the brain of steady fuel, triggering headaches or migraines in those who have the sensitivity. Right? Many people with migraines report that skipping meals or indulging in sweets can set off an episode. Right? There's those times we have cravings and want like a Coke from McDonald's, and man, it tastes so good, but what do we get from it? Usually a migraine, right? We think it's going to help, and then it makes it worse. So functional medicine practitioners often recommend tracking symptoms alongside meals. Start food tracking, liquid tracking. A simple journal can reveal powerful connections. Maybe migraines happen more often after higher carb dinners, longer gaps without food, or days of poor sleep. Identifying these patterns help people make practical adjustments, such as eating balanced meals or carrying protein-rich snacks. You may be working late. You may be on your feet all day. You may not have time to stop. Maybe you got to carry that protein bar with you, right? That protein gel. Frog fuel, right? It's a great one. Another one is nutrient deficiencies. These also play a role. For instance, low magnesium is associated with both insulin resistance and migraines. Magnesium supports the blood vessel relaxation, nerve signaling, and energy metabolism in the brain. Supplementation has been shown to reduce migraine frequency in some studies. Again, it's individualized because, for example, if I take a migraine supplement, for me, it triggers a migraine. So, not everybody's deficient in magnesium. Many people are, but it's individualized, right? That's what you have to test out. Then you have to think about other nutrients like B vitamins and CoQ10. These also support both metabolic and neurological health. The relationship between insulin resistance and migraines highlights why the whole body approach matters. Treating migraines with pain relievers alone may only offer temporary relief, but it doesn't address the underlying drivers. By supporting insulin sensitivity through balanced meals, regular exercise, stress reduction, and targeted supplementation, many people experience fewer migraines or reduced severity, right? Maybe you're getting 5 migraines a week. Now you're getting 2. And before your migraine severity was 8 to 10. And now the 2 you're getting are like a pain of a 1 to 2, to where they're tolerable. Take one step at a time. So now let's talk about one real world example. Clients who adopt consistent meal structures often find their migraines ease. Instead of skipping breakfast, then grabbing a sugary coffee drink, during mid-morning, they might eat eggs in the morning with vegetables and avocado. This stabilizes blood sugar and provides the brain with steady fuel. Over time, those small changes add up. Of course, migraines are multifactorial, right? Hormonal changes, environmental triggers, sleep disruptions, and genetics all play roles, but insulin resistance is a modifiable factor. It gives people an area of focus that empowers them rather than leaving them feeling with migraines that are uncontrollable, right? The connection is clear. When we support metabolic health, we support brain health. Addressing insulin resistance is not a cure for migraines, but it can reduce one of the major triggers, which will improve quality of life for many people. So as we always talk about, supplements are never a substitute for foundational lifestyle habits, but they can provide meaningful support for improving insulin sensitivity and reducing that migraine risk. What makes supplements particularly interesting is the growing body of research showing that certain nutrients and compounds directly influence glucose metabolism, inflammation, and vascular health. One of the best studies is berberine. This natural compound is found in plants like the barberry and golden seal. Research shows it improves insulin sensitivity by activating AMPK. This is an enzyme that helps regulate energy balance. Clinical trials have compared the blood sugar lowering effect to standard medications, showing significant improvements in fasting glucose and hemoglobin A1C. Berberine may also support cholesterol and triglyceride balance, making it valuable in metabolic syndrome. Magnesium is another essential nutrient, right? Roughly half of adults in developed countries do not get enough magnesium from their diets, and deficiencies are common in those with insulin resistance. Magnesium plays a role in over 300 enzymic reactions, including insulin signaling. Supplementation has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity in clinical trials. It also helps relax blood vessels and calm overactive nerves, and it's often the reason that many people use it for one of their migraine protocols. Alpha-lipoic acid, ALA, this is a powerful antioxidant that supports mitochondrial health. Research shows it can improve insulin sensitivity and reduce oxidative stress. It has also been used to help with nerve-related complications in diabetes. Because migraines often involve mitochondria dysfunction and oxidative stress in the brain, ALA may serve as dual benefits here. Coenzyme Q10, right? CoQ10. This is another mitochondrial supporter. It's naturally produced in the body but tends to decline with age. Support suggests supplementation may reduce the frequency of migraines. CoQ10 also supports cardiovascular and metabolic health, and this makes it a strong candidate for people with insulin resistance. Another one would be chromium. Chromium is a trace mineral involved in carbohydrate metabolism. Some studies show chromium supplementation can lower fasting glucose and improve insulin signaling, though results vary depending on the population that are studied. Another one we always talk about is omega-3 fatty acids. This is found in fish oil or algae oil, and it's well established for anti-inflammatory effects. They may improve insulin sensitivity and support vascular health, both of which are beneficial for those prone to migraines. Another one, vitamin D. Low vitamin D status is widespread and linked to insulin resistance. Some studies suggest that restoring vitamin D levels can improve insulin sensitivity and lower inflammation. Since vitamin D also influences the immune system and brain health, remember, it takes time for your levels to go to optimal when you take certain supplements, such as vitamin D, right? 3 to 6 months on average. You want to get those levels up. Same with other supplements. Give it time. It's important to note that supplements work best tailored to the individual. Functional labs can check nutrient levels and guide decisions. For instance, magnesium can be tested in red blood cells, vitamin D in serum, and CoQ10 through advanced panels, such as organic acid test. Personalized guidance prevents unnecessary supplementation and ensures effective dosing. Remember, at our practice, we give 20% off retail. So those that shop on Amazon, remember, there's a lot of fake products on Amazon. Looks legit, but look at who's selling the product. Oftentimes, the products such as Now brand or Pure Encapsulation, it looks legit. It looks identical, but then you look where it's coming from. It's not coming specifically from Amazon store. It's coming from a third party. And then you wonder, how come a $70 product is selling for $19? Well, because it's fake, so you have no idea what's in it. So the integrative takeaway is simple. Supplements are not that magic pill, but when used strategically, they can enhance your body's ability to restore insulin sensitivity and lower inflammation and reduce migraine triggers. So let's put it all together. When people hear the term insulin resistance, they often think it only applies to those with diabetes, right? Only the diabetic gets that, and that is not true. The reality is that millions of people have insulin resistance without knowing it, and it affects far more than just blood sugar. From energy to weight to brain health to migraines, insulin resistance has wide-reaching effects. That's why, from an integrative approach, it makes such a difference. What's the first step? The reason we're doing these podcasts, it's awareness. Many people are told their blood sugar is normal, but a closer look reveals dysfunction years before diabetes develops. That's why we run those functional labs. That's why we look at those symptoms. We want to understand what's taking place and coach you on the right path. You don't want it to show up in your blood labs when you go to your medical doctor. Once it reaches that stage, sometimes you're far too gone. I mean, there's still a lot of things that can be reversed, but at that stage, when it's detected on your blood work, that's not good. So traditional labs often rely on fasting glucose, which may not rise until late in the process. Functional markers like fasting insulin or the HOMA-IR score, trends in your A1C, these all provide early warnings. The second step is addressing the root causes through lifestyle. Nutrition is the foundation. Focus on protein, fat, and fiber at meals while cutting back on refined carbs and added sugars. Processed food is junk. You have to learn to get that out of your diet. Now, is it hard? Very hard. So I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't think anybody needs to be perfect there. You got to enjoy yourself too. Snack once in a while. But on the opposite side, you need to go for those whole foods, meats and vegetables. That's where you need to focus on. So both structured exercises and daily activity are also important. Remember, walking after meals or standing more often, train the body to be more glucose effective. Stress and sleep round out that picture as both can dramatically influence insulin function. What would be the third step? Anybody's guess? The third step is targeted support. Supplements like berberine, magnesium, alpha-lipoic acid, omega-3s, CoQ10, these all provide extra tools to restore that balance. When used alongside a strong lifestyle foundation, they can accelerate progress in supporting like brain function and inflammation. Migraines highlight the importance of the whole body view. Instead of treating migraines as isolated headaches, we can ask, what imbalance is your blood sugar, your insulin? Is your inflammation fueling your migraines? By supporting metabolic health, many people find migraines are less frequent, less severe, or easier to manage. Now, the next thing, consistency. This is the final piece. Insulin resistance develops over years, and reversing it requires steady habits. It doesn't mean perfection. Occasional indulgence, right? Like I said, busy weeks happen. It doesn't mean we can't cheat here and there, but you want to get on that right path. Over time, those shifts compound into better energy, clearer thinking, improved weight management, and lower risk of disease. Those that have migraines, those that have stomach pains, those that, they eat and have to run to the bathroom, you realize how much food is not good anymore like you thought it was. To where it's, hey, you know what? I could drink this pop, but it's going to give me a migraine. Is it worth it? Or I'm going to eat this piece of candy. A lot of people eat chocolate, triggers a migraine. Other people eat chocolate and may trigger severe stomach pain, right? So then you step back and think, is this food worth it? Then you learn to adjust your diet and say, you know what? I'm no longer going to eat those things. I'm going to learn to avoid, but you don't want to get to the point where you avoid everything. I've been there. It's a nightmare coming back from that. It takes years and years where you eliminate everything. And then you get to the point where you're so frustrated with eating to where you eat limited things. And then your own brain will trigger these migraines or stomach pain when the food's not even doing it anymore. So you may not even have that it's triggering because you're thinking about it. So it's one of those things. Get on the right path, start food tracking, do a food sensitivity test, address these supplements, right? You have the option here to take certain supplements recommended, test them out, give it at least a month, 2 months, try it, see how it's working for you, see if you see a change. And then if you still need help, then you're welcome to come, to us. But either or, you could come to us directly right away and we could get you on the right path, or you could try these things out, then come to us. So again, at Mindful Objective Integrative Health, we help people on those root causes behind their symptoms using those functional labs and personalized protocols specific to you. We also have the ability to get you those supplements at 20% off retail. You could just go up to the website, sign up. You do not have to be a customer of ours, but you do have to sign up to get our discount. So our goal is to empower people with knowledge and the tools to support their body naturally. The empowering message is this: insulin resistance is not a life sentence. The body has a way to adapt itself and heal itself. By focusing on whole foods, regular movement, stress reduction, sleep, and targeted nutrients, you can create an environment that your body thrives, not just in terms of blood sugar, but in every aspect of health. Remember, it's up to you. It's an individualized approach. Remember, each body is an individual, so what works for one may not work for the other. And remember, if you need help or guidance, that's what we're here for. Well, this wraps up today's episode of Mindful Objective. We explored insulin resistance, how it develops, why it matters, and what you do to support your body through whole nutrition, lifestyle, and targeted supplementations. Again, reach out for that 20% off. You can get it via the website. And as always, remember, this information shared here is for educational purposes only and should never be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your health plan. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay mindful, stay healthy, and stay empowered.